So we're talking about building your personal brand on LinkedIn, really thinking about LinkedIn presence as a strategic asset that you've got working for you all the time, right? There's only so much networking you can do. There's only so many conferences and conventions you can go to. How do you use this as an asset to help your brand remain relevant? And the way I'm going to use brand today is we're talking about ourselves. We could leverage this to talk about an actual brand. We could use this to talk about a publication or a media presence, but really the way that I'm going to present this as individuals. So I'm focused on brand building, but really know that networking and LinkedIn best practices are other components that are going to be major pieces to this puzzle. Not talking about those today. There's lots of places to learn about networking and LinkedIn best practices of what to fill in, how to fill it in. But the biggest misconception that I want to start with is stop thinking about your LinkedIn as a digital resume, right? If that's all you're going to use it for, you're really doing yourself a disservice, right? By thinking that this is just going to be my little website where I put all the jobs I've ever had, and every once in a while an award that I've won or a certification I've done. Stop using it like that. You're way more dynamic than your resume is ever going to show up, right? I think that the idea, most people at least, would way rather have a conversation about themselves than send someone a piece of paper that tries to explain everything they are in a nutshell. Stop using LinkedIn like that and use it as a way to really be able to carry out who you are, what you stand for, your values, what you know about. Yeah. So step one, stop treating LinkedIn like it's precious. I see people and I talk to people that treat LinkedIn like I'm going to make 2 posts a year, or when I get a new job, I'm going to announce it. And I'm going to be scared of it. Michelle, you said like I kind of stay away from it, right? It's one of those
Yeah.
things where I lurk or I, and the word I'm using here is precious. You can use your own word, but it's not, right? We're all familiar with different social platforms and really starting to think of LinkedIn as a social platform. You can delete things, right? You can put things up, you can change things, you can edit things. It's not that
It doesn't have to live there forever.
correct, right? I've spent a lot of time working with editors and book publishers and magazine publishers, and right, that's permanent, right? We're going to make sure that the copywriting is done well. We're going to make sure the editing is done well because once the ink hits the paper, there's no way of taking it back. LinkedIn is not that, right? It's really designed as an interactive, shifting thing that you can change, right? It's not permanent. LinkedIn isn't just for job hunting, right? It's a daily stage for your expertise. And I think that one of the things that a lot of people, at least a lot of people that work for companies, get caught in the trap of is thinking that their LinkedIn page is somehow their company's LinkedIn page. This is
Mm.
yours, right? It's your
Because we
stage.
got
Like
yelled
use
at
it.
by our bosses. That's why.
I've
Yeah.
got trauma for social interaction as well. I understand how
Yeah.
that works, but
Yeah.
it's yours, right? And also how do you want to show up? It's totally up to you. Of course, you don't want to go against the values of your company. You don't want to disparage your company or your competitors, but really, this is a platform for you.
I can
Second,
see why
pass.
people get nervous a little bit, Nick, because how many times you get on social media and somebody's disagreed with someone else and they say, make them famous, and
Ah,
then they spread whatever you put out there across across
Yeah.
social media. So I can see why it scares people,
I'm
especially
gonna
because this is a professional platform.
I'm gonna get into that here in a second because I do agree with you. I think that there is a fear of getting doxxed or lit up or right whatever word we want to use, but
Yeah,
we'll get into that here in a second.
great.
Um, but the second point here, like passive profiles don't attract opportunities. I've got a slide that I can't wait to get to. It's the next slide. And then most people hesitate because of fear of judgment, right?
That's
They're
me.
how am I going to show up? Am I scared of yeah, Michelle, right? Like, how are people going to judge me? How am I going to are they going to be scared
Yeah.
of me? But
Yeah. Because I judge people myself because I'm Catholic
Uh,
and that's what I do.
well,
So I do that. So therefore, I know it's coming back on me.
see, maybe you've put that out into the world, so you've got it coming back to you as a full
Right.
360 moment. But the idea of passive profiles don't attract opportunities. I've got a friend, Debbie, who brought this up in a meeting that we had last week. And it's really this idea that like I meet someone, do I think that they go back to their computer and put a post-it note that's like, hey, if we ever need some good ideas, let's call Nick? Like, of course not. Right. And I was just as guilty of this, of almost like collecting people on LinkedIn. Right. I'd
Yeah.
go out to a networking event, I'd go to a conference, I'd go to a show, and I'd collect these people and then not do anything with them. There shouldn't be anyone on your LinkedIn that you couldn't reach out to, right? Like everyone's there for the same reason. Everyone is there to network and to build a personal brand. So the idea of showing up, not being passive is really important. All right. Here we go, Michelle. Stop worrying about the haters. So
Ah,
what I'm really saying is here, we're worried about Michelle, but let's pretend like Michelle's not here and let's just talk openly.
let's
First
talk
off,
about her.
let's talk about her like she's not here. But the idea of addressing self-doubt, like what if people judge me? They will, but also most people won't. People are too busy with their own lives to care as much as you think.
Yeah.
Like to think that you're that important that when you show up, someone's just waiting there to like, can't wait to see what they're going to post so I can jump on it and crush them. Like that's not the way that, especially on a professional platform. And Rob, we just talked like on other social platforms. Let's light this person up. That's not how people are using LinkedIn today.
Right.
Right. I hope people don't use LinkedIn like that, but I had a LinkedIn phobia for a long time. The idea of like these five people that I couldn't even name by name that don't like me, that maybe I turned in a presentation late at some point in my career, just waiting for me to show up so that they can shame me. Get that idea out of your head because they're not sitting there waiting for you.
I think that's good advice. I also think if people judge you, think about how you are when you're on social media. Somebody posts something you think is goofy or whatever. It's not like you judge them forever.
No,
You might just roll your eyes and move on, right? And that's not the end of the world.
correct. Yeah, I'm not encouraging you to show up and be weird and goofy, but no one's waiting to shame you over there. The next part, and I truly believe this, is that it's way better to put something out into the world than waiting and sitting in your room and making it perfect, right?
Hmm.
The idea, the biggest voices on LinkedIn, they weren't always the biggest voices on LinkedIn. They started somewhere.
Yep.
And that the idea that authenticity builds trust faster than perfection. I make it's a joke, but I'm actually serious. I'm actually hungry for people to start misspelling words again. Right? I would love to run into some misspellings just to know that someone actually wrote it, that it's not perfect, that they didn't
So you
massage it.
must not like to use AI then, when LinkedIn's like, let's use AI to write your post. You're like, no.
Right? Let's not. I mean, that
Yeah.
feels like it's fast, right? But is it really
But people are
you? And
complaining about it, I read. Like people are complaining about a lot of posts being written on LinkedIn using AI, and they're like,
Yeah.
we can tell it's not you.
yep, and
A lot
LinkedIn
of
gives you
times
the
you can
option.
tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to
So,
admit, though, I'm pretty judgy about spelling, though. I have to say that.
oh, right, as communicators, we should be very judgy about spelling, but the idea that someone didn't just sit there and make this thing perfect, that it's actually them showing up is, I don't want to see misspellings on LinkedIn, but that the idea is there, right? That it's
Yep.
better to start than to wait and make it perfect. Start the routine, start the habit, start building that brand. Because the
Good
longer you
advice.
wait, yeah, it's gonna take time.
Yep.
Um, Show up. So visibility creates opportunity. So poor truth, you don't get picked if you don't play the game, right? How do you show up? What is the thing that you want to be known for? Um, Likely it's potentially in an industry. So it could be in the outdoor industry, right? Maybe there's a specific niche that you want to be credible in. Show up there. Comment on industry discussions. I'm going to show you a hack. So I really wanted to make sure that this presentation was actionable and not just us staring at a screen. But the last idea here is that momentum builds confidence. The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Hmm.
So I'm going to show this is a hack, and I can't believe that I'm sharing all my little secrets, but I'm going to do it just because you guys are so special. And so when you go to someone's LinkedIn profile, there's the opportunity to connect, right? And so there are probably people in the industry that you don't know, that you have not received an introduction to yet, that connecting with them out of the blue probably makes you nervous if they're going to accept your connection. If they're not going to accept your connection, what happens if I run into them on the floor at Shot Show? Are they going to Um, right? Look at me like I'm an idiot. To the right of the connect and to the right of the message button on LinkedIn on someone's profile, there's a more. Click on that more, and you have the ability to follow someone without making a connection request. Okay. So the example here of how this would be used is, let's say that there are, I'm just going to use an exact example. Let's say that there's 5 CMOs that work for the 5 largest outdoor manufacturers that you would love to network into. Rather than connecting with them, you can follow them. And now their posts are going to show up in your feed, and you're going to be able to respond and react to those posts as if you were connected to them.
Mm.
So hopefully this makes sense.
Yep.
Much easier then to connect with them after they already have an awareness of who you are and how you're going to bring value to their life than to just reach out of the blue. So that's my one actionable tip in this section here.
I like that. How long have they had that, I wonder?
Been there for a while and people really haven't used it in that way. So
Okay.
what happens is, if I were to connect with someone new, it would automatically by default also follow them, but they've separated the connection and follow as well. So I can follow without connecting. I can connect without following, but it's an extra step. But that's kind of the general idea there. And it's a great way to be able to start to get involved in conversations that are happening outside of your kind of first degree direct
And they're going to
connection.
see that you followed them, right?
Correct. They will.
Yeah.
They will
Okay.
see that it'll pop up. It'll say, Nick Jacoby, I followed you.
Okay.
They don't have to do anything. They don't have to approve, deny, accept, reject. It's just something that happens there on LinkedIn.
Are you going to talk about premium, LinkedIn Premium at all?
I am not. I can. But yeah, I'm not. So again, like the idea of like LinkedIn best practices and how to use LinkedIn versus building a brand versus
Yeah.
networking, it feels like they are all very interrelated. Um, and I'm happy to, if you want to reach out directly, I'm happy to go into that in more detail. I am a premium user on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people that aren't. It just kind of depends on what you're using for and how you want to use it as a platform. And again, I don't want to show up as a LinkedIn evangelist. That is, it's a necessary evil, right? That's kind of the way that I see it. It's something I do. I spend a lot of time on there. I interact with people. I connect with people. If I chose to wake up in the morning and not have to use LinkedIn, I'm not sure I would, right? But it's something that exists.
Just being
So
honest.
I mean, that's part of the brand. I want to show
Yeah.
up with my real self. That
Right.
AI didn't just write that. That's truly how I feel. And I would post the same thing on LinkedIn. So rethinking content. So content is such a broad term, and I think it probably means something different to all of us, right? There's nuance here. But really starting to think of LinkedIn as a platform where you're not just resharing what you're sharing on YouTube or what you're sharing on Facebook or what you're sharing on Instagram or X. It really requires a different strategy because it's where you're building your personal brand. The content, the fishing video, the hunting video, the article that you wrote, right? That might be what you do, but it's not necessarily who you are or how you think about things. And so start to think about, what's the step that happens? What are all the steps that I put into creating the thing that I create? So behind the scenes expertise, instead of here's what I did, right? Here's what I learned, right? So make it engaging, videos, lists, storytelling. I just came up with some example perspectives. You guys would know what this is way better than I do, because you're experts in this. But as opposed to, yes, you can share all the photos you took, but what if you also wrote about how you see light differently depending on time of year or where you're shooting, or a writer, right, an author writing about the thought process that goes behind a strong opening line? Yeah, let's see the strong opening line, but talk about like your thought process that went into that. It's really where you're able to shed light on who you are, how you think, and you control how you show up there. So if all you're doing is sharing things that you've already made, okay, you can do that. That should be part of it, but that can't be all of it. This is something that I hear a lot from content creators. The idea that if I show up on LinkedIn and tell everyone how I do things, if I share my magic sauce, my secrets to everything that I've ever learned how to do, that someone's going to steal my ideas, and my ideas aren't going to be worth anything anymore. I have a videographer that I've worked with for 15 years. And my favorite line that he's ever said was, I can teach you everything I know in 20 minutes. It's going to take you a lifetime to master it. Right. Let's reframe this fear. Like ideas are free, which I hate to say because I believe I've created a career on selling ideas, but it's really the execution of what sets people apart, right? If I show up and I say, here's how I think about things, here's the thought process that goes into this thing, here's how I believe this should be done, and actually put it into the world as opposed to just keeping it in my head, I'm going to be seen as someone that with authority and trust, not competition, right? Because I'm going to establish that I'm there to share. Part of the brand that I've been trying to build is the idea of showing up with generosity. How do I show up in a generous way so that people think of me as, wow, Nick is really willing to collaborate. He's willing to share what he knows. He's willing to share how he thinks. I'm not worried that people are going to steal it, but please, if you want to steal it and that's your brand, awesome. That's not how I see the world. So the practical tip here is the more value you give, the more people are going to see you as a go-to expert, which is really what you want, right? To establish your brand as someone that knows something about something, maybe knows more than anyone else about something. And people are going to see you as the go-to in that space. If you keep all of your ideas to yourself, you're worried someone's going to steal them, again, you're not going to show up. So step one is really building a simple content calendar. If this is too remedial, please, you can hang up the Zoom right now. But really, what I'm going to do is on this next screen, I'm going to show you what my content calendar looks like. And
Oh,
so
awesome.
the idea is to build a simple framework, 1 to 2 pillar topics. So what are your expertise themes? So my expertise themes that I lean into are the way of really strategizing content, thinking about connecting content to outcomes, right? It's not the actual content itself. I'm not talking about here's how I make a video about music. It's here's my thought that goes into this. I add 1 to 2 personal insights per week. I create an interactive element, right? Even if people don't interact with it, you'd be shocked at how many times that shows up in people's feed. I could get into LinkedIn analytics. Again, there's so many different paths here, but to show you what the back end of my LinkedIn looks like, and when I post, and even when I post a question and no one answers, it's still showing up thousands of times over the course of a few days. The last piece is this personality trait. And that's where I talked about, for me, it's showing up with generosity. How do I show up in a generous way? What are the other personality traits that you would like to have associated with your personal brand? And making sure that you put those into your content calendar planning. And then last, make sure you're balancing between planned and reactive content. So leaving room for real-time conversations. So like we jumped back and said, I'm now following these 10 thought leaders or these 100 thought leaders. How am I going to do this execute this calendar plus have opportunities to engage with what they're putting out into the world? So it's not sexy, it's not beautiful, but here is an example of what my content calendar looks like. And so I broke it down. I started with kind of the overall theme. For the example here in month 1, which happened to be last month, it was the problem with content chaos. So my goal was to highlight the risks of scattered, checklist-driven content creation and make the case for strategy-driven storytelling, right? You can see that it's not strategy-driven storytelling in fishing or camping. It's just the idea of strategy-driven storytelling. So I broke it down. So the reason that these are highlighted like this, and I use Google Docs. I now have this content calendar as I actually produce the piece of content. I link within my Google Docs so that I have kind of one master spreadsheet, or not even a spreadsheet, one master content calendar that then is linked out to the individual pieces of content. So again, it's this, I laid this out over the course of a week. I said, how do I want to show up over the next year? So I've actually built this out for 12 months.
Oh,
I
wow.
think that's probably a big lift for a lot of people. I would suggest starting with like 6 months or 3 months. But what doesn't work is flying by the seat of your pants. Don't hope that you're going to wake up tomorrow with the best idea and then you're going to get to it. This is how you set yourself up for success.
I love this because I do fly by the seat of my pants, and
Yeah.
I would never put a content calendar together for LinkedIn.
It's not intuitive, but again, like if I want to show up as the best version of myself, I've identified who I want to be, how I want to show up. I want to show up as an expert in this. I want to show up with these characteristics, these personality traits. Let me map them out. I think the worst
Yeah.
way to create content is to say, oh yeah, we're hitting all the metrics, we're doing all the things. Because often you get 6 months down the road, and if you look back in the rearview mirror and said, did I really accomplish what I set out to be? Did I show up as the version of myself that I told myself I was going to? Probably 9 times out of 10 without a plan in place, the answer is not going to be as strong as you think you could have.
Yeah. There's a gal on who does LinkedIn marketing, and her last name is Fox.
Ah,
So you can, I think her name is Judy Fox. She wears fox ears all the
oh,
time, 24
see,
hours a day, 7 days a week. Every time I see her, give a webinar, or whatever, she always has her little fox ears on. And that's just her brand, right? That's what you're going to remember that. You're going to remember her because her last name is Fox. And I don't know. I don't know if I could pull that off, but bless her heart.
I'm not going to lie. I have probably 6 to 10 pairs of colored glasses. These are the pair that I keep wearing when I show up on camera,
Mm,
right? This is, I don't want to say it's part of my brand, but it's one of those things when I then go out into the world, people recognize me because
mhm.
of this thing, right? So kind of, I'm, I'm putting it all out there for you guys. Let me
There
let
you
me show
go.
you how I think.
Yep.
So the action step really here is like outline 3 to 5 key themes. So your themes could be whatever you want them to be. It um, could be positive, it could be negative, like depending on your brand. I helped someone who's this last week who I would say their brand is a little negative. Their personal brand is a little negative. Not that they're a hater, but that's who they are. And so they produce video content. And the struggle was nobody wants quality video anymore because of how easy it is to use apps and drag and drop and AI, right? No one wants that anymore. And so I actually helped them build a content calendar around the thinking of show us why what you do is better, right? Show us examples side by side of exactly what you're talking about of why you think this is not a good experience. And so, not my brand, I'm not going to show up in that way, but for them to be like, this is why it matters. And let me show you why what you're doing look exactly like what everyone else is doing is a kind of a cool angle. So, again, what are
So
those
did you
themes?
just do that on your own time?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, like part of my brand is to show up with generosity.
Hmm.
And I don't just say that, like that's truly what I mean. I believe that I can help someone that has been that is out of work figure out how to get to a healthier place of thinking about that much quicker. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. If I see someone that posts up open to work or hey, I just lost my job, I proactively reach out to them now and say, hey, let's sit down for coffee. Let me walk you through the 5 steps that you need to do right now so that you don't waste the next 8 weeks of your life. So
That's
again,
very kind. Yeah.
that's a talk for another time, but just
Yeah.
to kind of yes. All right. So I promise I'm not going to keep you guys all morning, but the idea here,
Oh,
there
this is
really
great.
is there really is a future trend and prediction where LinkedIn is headed. And that I believe that 2025 will be the year of the LinkedIn video influencer. As we're tackling, embracing, struggling, wrestling, whatever word you want to use with AI, people that show up and you can see them and people can look at you in the face, there's a whole level of trust that leapfrogs anything that's written.
Mm,
And yes, I feel for right. This feels like when I was on the radio, right, and I have a face made for radio. I'm not asking you to become a true influencer. I'm not telling you that you need to show up on television, but I would suggest starting to figure out how to show up on video every once in a while. Video content gets higher engagement, builds trust faster. The tip here is start practicing now. Short, valuable insights on camera. Nick, how do I
No,
do
that
that?
that really rings true. And I don't like it, but it really rings true. I'm the kind of person who still likes to read the news.
Mhm.
A lot of sports websites these days, all of their coverage is video. And they're not doing that because necessarily they want to. That's what people interact with. That's what people value. So I can see how that would be the smart direction to go.
And so, what I'm going to show you next, again, this is the first time I've ever lifted the veil on how I do this, but let me show you. Get yourself a teleprompter app on your phone. I
oh,
use I use a platform called BigView. There are lots of options in the app stores. BigView has a paid option, it also has a free option. It allows me to cut, sorry, I've got a puppy screaming. Big View or these teleprompter apps allow you to copy and paste your script directly into the app, set the speed of how fast you want it to scroll across your screen. And from there, you're able to record, you're able to start, you're able to stop. My videos, I don't shoot them in one, right? I figure out where I want to emphasize. I watch it back and I say, if this came across my feed, would I think this guy's like knows what he's talking about or not? This is the way to start, especially if you have a phobia of video, seeing yourself, hearing yourself. One of the tips, this again, parallel universe, I just talked about job hunting. There are platforms out there that allow you to do mock interviews and record yourself so you can watch and see how you look as questions that you don't know are coming pop up, right? So as ways to prepare. This is the way that content is created. This is the way that everyone's able to create at scale.
Is that a paid tool?
There is a paid version of Big View. In full transparency, I use the free version. I have to put up with a pop-up encouraging me to pay every time I open the app, but it's free.
It's a small price to pay. Yeah.
Yep.
Nick, I have a question. So if you're going to start putting yourself out there that way, is it a better presentation of yourself to have a nice high quality microphone in front of you like you do versus the big earmuff thing I've got going on?
Well, is it part of your brand or not? Right? Like I think, right? If that's how they're going to expect you to show up, Rob, like if I meet Rob outside of his video, is he going to have the earmuffs on and the microphone? If the answer is yes, awesome. Right? I'm not asking you to go out and buy a beautiful microphone and a beautiful camera and right figure out how to use your phone as a hotspot. That's right. But I think that being able to show up as your authentic self, people value that.
Right, right. I had a client send me the earmuffs just because it was better quality for the podcast we were doing all the time. Right.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it still looks kind of goofy compared to the two of you.
Well, if I was wearing the earmuffs, you probably wouldn't be able to hear the puppy crying in the background. So it's just part of my brand, I
Right.
collect cattle dogs as well. Let me tell you about that. All right. So kind of in closing here, the roadmap to LinkedIn success: show up consistently, build yourself a content calendar. The only way I don't know if you're like me and the ultimate kind of procrastinator. If you help yourself set up for success, you're going to be able to figure out how to keep a cadence, show up consistently. And the best part about showing up consistently is that you're going to be able to predict what the way you want to show up, how you want to show up, what you want to talk about, what you want to be known for. Share value with confidence. So imposter syndrome is something, right? That's a real thing. I don't think that I know everything about content. I shouldn't be the one that should talk about how to build your brand on LinkedIn. Maybe I'm not, but I'm going to show up that way because I believe that I can bring value. Engage like a real person, not a resume. Again, I think your resume is a snapshot of yourself. LinkedIn and the way you show up should be more than your digital resume. Define your
Uh,
niche and own it. Yeah.
Nick, you've got a comment there that you better look at because I have to say, I think that Tom has just given us a new rule.
Oh, if you
I don't,
as if you
I don't
mention a
know.
puppy on camera, you must show us the puppy.
I mentioned, I'm sorry, what was the?
If you mention a puppy while you're on camera, then you have to show us the puppy.
Oh gosh, that would be, I
Is the
think,
puppy crated?
no, I mean, yeah, you can look at Ranger Mike. He's laying there on the couch. That's not the
Right.
puppy, but that's
One of
Ranger
them?
Mike. He's the dum dum of the group.
Oh,
That's funny.
But that is a good rule. I should just have a lap full of puppies that make that part of my brand.
there you
Oh
go.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you haven't heard this cliche, the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time right now,
Yep.
right? Like find yourself 30 minutes to start to build, lay out how you want to show up, who you want to show up as, how are you going to be like, what's the thing you want to be known for?
Yep. If you want fox ears and you want to wear fox ears on your head every time, go for it.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
I'm
That's
judging
right.
you for it, but go for it.
Whoa,
Michelle, I love your first choice on that last poll. Not a chance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm considering it. I'm considering
I
going on
do.
video, but I
Yeah.
did put in the chat I said I'd recommend following the CEO of LinkedIn because he has been pushing video. So just like you should be following the CEO of Instagram, Masari, he whatever he says obviously is the key to the kingdom, and other people just regurgitate it and pretend that they know what they're talking about, and really they're just regurgitating what
Right.
he's saying.
Right.
Same thing with LinkedIn. I would just recommend following him, and yeah. All right. Any
Awesome.
questions, concerns, comments?
Well, this has been great. That's my comment. It seems like simple stuff, but I have to
Yeah.
confess, I'm doing none of it
What
That is
about
the
currently.
this
hard part, right?
social selling network that you were telling me about, Nick? Should I put that in the chat and give
Oh,
people that
sure.
link? Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And it's what it is it's LinkedIn sales tool, but there's a way for you to be able to get a snapshot of how well you're building your brand on LinkedIn, right? How authoritative are you? How
Yeah.
well are you actually interacting? And LinkedIn on your LinkedIn, whether you have a premium account or not, it'll actually tell you like, hey, do these three things this week: post, interact, comments, create something, right? It's all there for everyone. And that's probably a whole nother course on how to use LinkedIn. But yes, just to keep planting seeds in your head, Michelle, what you
Well,
could do next.
Yeah.
that score sheet, I mean, it gives you something to evaluate yourself on. So if you put yourself out there the way you're recommending, and then you've got some sort of metric that you can follow once a month, go look at your scores and see if you went anywhere with it. It gives you something tangible to look at.
I'm already in the
Right.
top 2%. How can I get better? I don't even know. Okay, Jim has a question. He goes, I have a personal account and a business account on LinkedIn, and trying to gain followers for the business account, I tested a few paid ads. Example, a $50 boost received 22,500 impressions, but zero followers. Any suggestions on how to do paid ads?
So I think what is the value? That's my recommendation for anyone that's doing social media in the year 2025. Why? Why would someone want what you have? You can explain why you want them to have what you have, right? I'm selling this widget. I want you to come buy it. I need eyeballs to buy it. But what is the value that you're showing up with for them that why they want to invite you into their life, right? So I would suggest creating I mean, there's lots of ways to do this, but specifically on LinkedIn, is your customer on LinkedIn? One, let's assume they are. Two, what can you show up with of value? Just again, the idea of generosity, so that they say, wow, like they gave me something that was of value to me. I I I mean, this is an idea I came up with. I don't even want to tell you how long ago, but like the idea of treating social media like a first date, right? Where it's let me tell you more about me and me and me and me and me and me and me.
Yeah.
You're never going to get a second date, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of like, how do I show up and engage and provide value to this? That's the way that you're going to build like authentic, meaningful relationships. Because the idea isn't to collect, again, whether it's collecting customers, collecting contacts, you're not trying to collect anything. You're trying to create something that has a two-way street that provides value both for yourself as well as for the consumer.
Yeah, hopefully
I
that
mean,
helps.
we could get it right, create a white paper, create a lead magnet, right? And so if that's a great way to do it. And that's very easy. Like, what is the thing you want to be known for? How do I add value? How do I show up with additional value? I'll create something that they can download. But in order to download it, they have to do something. Like
Yeah,
it's an
gatekeep it.
exchange.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was listening to a podcast the other day that defined our why we're tied to these things so much and everything as the attention economy. And I've heard that before, but like, Netflix and YouTube and everyone knows how to play the game of the attention economy, and they're doing everything they can to get your attention, from throwing notifications to like, gatekeeping, offering coupons, to whatever they can do to get that dopamine of yours to rise, right? So that you keep scrolling, keep at it. And I think the same with LinkedIn. It's attention economy. Like, what are you doing to get someone's attention?
It's almost like you wanted to create a plug for the new episode of my podcast that I put out yesterday. And it's this idea that I don't know if anyone recognized this, but the James Bond franchise was
Mm,
purchased by Amazon.
mm,
Right.
I saw
Okay.
that.
Cool.
yeah.
So what is that? Well, that sounds great. Like more movies, bigger budgets, more technology. The thing that I think that people aren't taking into account with Netflix or with Amazon is they're building an algorithm, not just for what to show you, but for what to make. And so thinking about
Mm.
content algorithms, if they can say, hey, every time we put X, Y, and Z combined with ABC plus 1, 2, 3, it does this. Let's do that over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so while we keep talking about phones and getting sucked into attention economy, it's happening in all aspects of our life. And like we're losing things that we don't even realize we're losing. Because by the time it's happened, we're like, oh, great, I saw 15 James Bond movies this year.
Uh,
That, so yeah, sorry, that's another tangent and rant, but it's happening in all
You need to go
aspects of our
listen to
life.
your podcast. All right.
It's a really interesting point, though. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, cool, a big up like a media company got acquired. But looking actually like how those companies work, we're losing something, right? We're losing something as a society.
Yeah.
Like I again got way too nerdy, but like there's a guy whose last name was Broccoli who owned and founded like he was the care like taker of the James Bond franchise.
Hmm.
And then his kids took care of it and they sold it to Jeff Bezos. And it's like, okay, great. So like are we now going to measure the success of James Bond franchises around how many Prime memberships they sell? Or
Right.
around like what are the ways the things that we don't aren't even aware of that are happening that we're losing? So
Because we are for
intention.
sale. We are for
Yep.
sale. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it goes back to like the idea to bring it back to what we're talking about here, the idea of showing up with intention, with purpose as the best version of yourself. Because if you just sit back and wait for things to come to you, they will, but the outcome is going to be who knows. So
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a great topic. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for everyone being on the call today and joining us. This recording will be available on the POMA website. And watch for more POMA Insight sessions. We have more coming in April and May. I just had an email from another gentleman who wants to do an insight session with us. So these are great. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
thank you for
Thank you,
having me.
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.